Hey everybody, it's Mikki here. You're listening to Wikipedia, and this week on the podcast I speak to a returning guest and one of my great mates, Professor Grant Schofield, about his book that has just been released and sold out in bookstores up and down the country, Choose Your Hard. We unpack the concepts behind it this week on the podcast, and as always, this is just an awesome conversation. Grant's been on the podcast several times at this point, and for those of you unfamiliar, Grant is a Professor of Public Health at Auckland University of Technology, former Director of the university's Human Potential Centre, former Chief Scientific Advisor to the Ministry of Education in New Zealand, co-author of 4 best-selling books, the What the Fat series, and Chief Science Officer for PREKURE. Professor Grant's career has focused on preventing the diseases of modern times and seeing what it takes to help people live a long, healthy, and happy life. He lives and breathes the motto, be the best you can be, and sees this as a game changer for the health system, capable of transforming the current health model or sickness model to one in which we aspire to be well. He is redefining public health as the science of human potential, the study of what it takes to have a great life. And this theme permeates the principles underlying Choose Your Hard. Grant is well known for thinking outside the box and challenging conventional wisdom in nutrition and weight loss, as well as physical activity and exercise. He brings his fluency across several scientific disciplines, from human physiology to psychology to peak performance to his role at PREKURE, where he delivers world-class training in lifestyle medicine. I've put a link as to where you can find Grant's book in the show notes, also how you can find Grant through other avenues such as his blog, profgrantschofield.com, and also, of course, PREKURE. And I've got links in the show notes to previous podcast episodes with Grant right back at podcast number 1, and he was the very first guest on Wikipedia. All right, guys, you enjoy this conversation. And I've picked up some things, and I'm just.
I'm on it. I'm on it.
Oh, good. I thought that you would be. I thought clearly you are. So I reckon we'll just kick off. Grant, how are you doing this morning? This evening? This afternoon? Oh my God. Okay. I was just telling you how athletic I feel and I'm really switched on again and my brain is failing me this afternoon. But anyway.
I'm feeling great. I'm feeling like I've had a weekend of activity. I've been fit. I've been socialising. I've been to the movies. I've been to Boney M.
Oh, nice.
I've danced to Rasputin and Daddy Cool and sung loudly the whole time. It was great.
Do you know that's a huge I don't know what it, but it's so good for your nervous system to sing. I think music and singing, and that is so good. Like just for that feel good factor, it's like laughing. So good for you.
Yeah, and so I had Sam, my 25-year-old, and his partner. They came.
Yeah.
And I took Mum, who's 86. She was there.
Oh, amazing. So clearly it spans generations. Now, quickly before we get into our conversation, what movie did you see?
It's called Project Hail Mary. It's a sci-fi, and the reason I went to see it is it was a good movie, but I've actually read the book twice, so I'm quite into that type of thing.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Nice one. I've heard of it actually, but I've not read the book. I'm not sure. I don't know that I knew it was a book actually, but I've seen the movie advertised. I sort of thought it might have been Michael that you'd gone to, which is.
I want to see that as well. I want to see Michael Jackson. I'm a Michael Jackson fan, especially the early stuff. So I think that's going to be a thing.
Yeah, I think so. I'm in fact going to see MJ on Broadway this week.
Cool.
Yeah.
Actual Broadway.
Yeah, actual Broadway.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So
it's a long way from Hobsonville.
It is a long. And in fact, as you say Hobsonville, I immediately think of Hobbiton. I'm not sure why. Well, I mean, I know why, but that whole sort of like suburban to like the bright lights of the Big Apple, really. Yeah, that's where I'm going. Grant, stoked to talk to you about your book, which is in my hands, and is it available yet, or is this?
No, it's available in the next couple of weeks. You're amongst the first people to actually ever get a copy.
I feel so privileged. This is so great, because I think you and I spoke of this book maybe last time we caught up, but it was just it wasn't in the stages that, it wasn't a finished product, but it was definitely something that you were working on. And what I love most about this is that as I'm glancing through it, and to your point, as I said, that I've just received it, so I have yet to read the entire thing, but it sort of looks like not very academic for such an academic person, which is that's not a bad thing, obviously.
No, it's not an academic book at all. It's a sort of almanac of. It's called Choose Your Hard, and it's quite a big pivot for me. Especially I think I'm roundly criticising on public health here for just missing the major points about being a human, and I think the major points are as follows. There's no such thing as easy. There is no life that is easy. There's not such a thing. And that's been identified by every religion, every philosophy, from the Stoics, the Buddhists, Buddha, life is suffering, to even the Christians got it. So, and modern self-help is full of that idea. Yet modern public health tells us that actually it doesn't have to be hard, even when you've got changes to make, just make them small and easy. And I think it's just a load of bullshit, actually. If you want to have a good life, you will have to endure. And you endure, it's just a timing of the enduring. So, a good life is work up front, and then you still get to have to work, but it's under your terms, under things that you want to do, and other people often come with you. If you don't do work up front, then life will be hard as well, but you won't have as much control as resources, but it's equally not easy. There's no easy path. And not only that, it's consistent with the biology. So I think the biology actually, and I think I think what you'll really like about this framework that I'm about to talk about is I think it really explains, and it becomes very clear when you see all the stupid nutrition debates going on, all the stupid exercise debates, all the take this, take that debates, how low level, not seeing the bigger picture they actually are. So I think, for me, what I'd like people to think about is there's a biology of being a functioning human, and it requires stress. Now, everyone understands that. I guess in the context of exercise, you go running, you lift some weights, you do something which is beyond your current capacity. Just the body, given it's got the right building blocks, that's where nutrition of it comes in quite a bit, and has enough time to recover. That's where sleep and these rest come in. It rebuilds itself. And people are really familiar with that idea of general adaptation, the biological term for that, hormesis. That's really a thing. But there's a couple of other types of ways that can go really outside of that. The first is you just don't do anything, or not enough to stress the system. And because the system is really good at predicting what resources it needs in the future, that process is called allostasis, then it unadapts. It takes away. It's not going to allocate muscle or mitochondria or white blood cells or capillarization to things that are unnecessary. That would be a waste of resources. So you can devolve, you can atrophy from insufficient load. Equally, you can have excess load, and that's bad as well. And you can do it through too much training, but that's not generally how it's done in society. It's done through excess energy load. It's done through nutrients that push outside our capacity to store them. It's done through having a system that is unable to adapt because it doesn't have the right building blocks, essential fatty acids, amino acids, essential micronutrients, so it can't adapt. That would normally be adaptive, but you haven't had enough sleep, you're too stressed, it's outside that. So I've actually just written a really nice paper on this called the Metabolic Allostatic Framework. What it says is you actually have to understand a fair bit about biology and the biology of doing hard things to have a good life. It's as simple as that. You have to understand that. And it's that we have a keto debate. It's ridiculous, or a protein debate, or any zone 1 or zone 2 or zone whatever debate. There's a context to everything, and it's utterly individual. The training load that you can take this morning, Mikki, after doing a 25k run the day before is adjusted, but say you had a bad sleep and an argument with Barry, not that you did, then that's different again, and you had a poor diet or a good diet. Those behavioural inputs of diet, sleep, stress, exercise, all of the other little nutrients that fit under diet are an incredibly interactive thing, and they only interact in the case of having enough stress for the system to move forward and progress and adapt, and that's why exercise is such a crucial thing. But equally, some things like a plausible effect of vegetables is the polyphenols are slightly toxic, and that confers improvement in the system. And so, just tried to write about some of that, but in both those sort of biological and psychological contexts.
It's interesting, Grant. So a couple of things come up for me initially. One is, as you were talking about how in public health, and you didn't say this, so I'm sort of paraphrasing, but that almost watered down recommendations for the population, because and I was listening to a podcast about this morning, or it came up in this podcast this morning, that you don't want to tell people that they need to work hard, because actually you'll just scare them off, and so they'll never achieve that goal, and therefore if they perceive that they'll never achieve a goal, then why would they even try? And the physical activity recommendations is a good example of this. This is the rationale. This is why we recommended to get 30 minutes of exercise a day, not the 90 minutes or the 60 minutes or whatever it is that might actually be even more beneficial, because people are put off by these very almost like unachievable goals. So I think that's the first thing I thought about.
Yeah, I mean, you sort of ran the risk of what Michelangelo described back in the Renaissance painting days, that the problem for most people isn't aiming too high and missing, it's aiming too low and hitting.
Yes,
and
nice.
So the physical activity's got us such an interesting thing for that. So there is a context here, because half of the people are coming off the couch, right? Half of people in every developed country don't meet the minimum guidelines of 30 minutes every day of gardening or dirt. They don't meet that. So we're hoping that just by being nice to them and gently we can get them doing that. But it hasn't really worked, because actually over my tenure, when I started as an academic, New Zealand was the most active country in the world. Now we're in the bottom third of the OECD.
Oh, wow.
And going down. So maybe we should give them all the information, like the actual truth, that the fitness is important, so strength, and the more you do, the better the health benefits are. And the way we've set out society at the moment, it's not easy. In fact, it's really hard. That's the actual truth. And it's really interesting in other parts of medicine, like you get cancer. No one's worried about going, look, we're going to actually have to chop that out. We're going to give you a deadly poison, chemotherapy. We might zap it with radiation. You'll get sick because of that. Everyone's just like, bring it on, whatever it takes.
Yeah, good call.
I don't know. So it's a thing. A classic in medicine that just unrelated, but such a great measure of metabolic health is fasted triglycerides, right? Standard panel, and doctors, they do all 5 measures of metabolic syndrome: blood pressure, measure of glucose or insulin resistance, HDL. They do weight or visceral adiposity, and they can't bring themselves to do fasted triglycerides. It's too hard for people not to eat breakfast and go and get a blood test. We can't do that, and you virtually invalidate the test. And so one of the most important metabolic markers of diet and insulin resistance and your capacity to burn fat or be a sugar burner is null and void, because it was too hard for people to do. And that's just standard public health, is like try to make it as easy as possible. In doing so, make it useless.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to go for the exact opposite here and actually just tell you the whole truth. And the science of, as we know, of exercise, diet, the reward system that I cover, and the rest of it we'll get into. It's not straightforward. It is understandable. It's good fun doing it, but it's your body, for God's sake, and your mind. I think we owe it to people to tell them the whole truth about how things can be optimized as a human. And okay, that might not appeal to everyone, but it's going to appeal to a large portion of the population, is my view. So I'm actually sort of sick of the PC woke bullshit of public health of telling not the truth and watering it down to a point where people can, they think people will do it, and then they don't anyway.
Yeah,
so,
yeah. No, I like that. And we are clearly on the same page with that. Before we crack on into this, though, one other thing I'd like to address is that you, in fact, you were like one of the biggest voices in particularly like the diet space when you're a disruptor, right? You're like just across the course of your career, at least as long as I've known you. Possibly it sort of got worse as you got older. Maybe it's an age thing. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah. But and so, at the very start of your book, you've got some sort of endorsements from some unnamed professors who literally are thinking that you're going to undermine public confidence and you're setting the nation on a path to increase coronary artery disease, So, but this was because of the work that you did to sort of myopically focus on diet, for example, is what people might think. So how has your thinking evolved, Grant, in this space, or actually you just, I don't know, recognize a need for something for people to step back and look at the bigger picture? Because it's very easy to become focused on one thing, I guess.
So first of all, the first 2 pages of that book have these little endorsements for the exact opposite endorsements that Grant Schofield is killing people, Grant Schofield is going to run the country on a path to coronary heart disease. And I only found that the other day when we're finally getting the book published. It was a letter that the University of Otago had written, and then it was undersigned by about 60 academics and medical professionals around the country, and then also the NGOs, so the Heart Foundation, Diabetes New Zealand, Cancer Society, and so forth, criticising myself and Karen for criticising the dietary guidelines. And we had gone down quite a low-carb path, to be honest. And so I just thought, we'll put the best endorsements at the front of the book, because it's sort of, being criticised by the clown show is always, always an endorsement, I suppose. But to your point around the bigger picture, no, I think I've only really recently writing that book, and then I'm writing a new metabolic revolution book, and then penning this metabolic elastic framework scientific paper, has made me articulate these layer one inputs, which are the behavioural things, exercise, sleep, stress, diet, which includes both energy load and nutrient composition, and so on. And then there's a layer 2, which is the total load that the system's under, and that's a sort of weighted moving average of what you've been experiencing. That load, if it's chronic, articulates into specific organ failure, but that's different for different people. Like your liver might be more prone than mine, and my brain might be more prone than yours. And then you end up with chronic disease, and those are all related. That's why it's neurodegenerative disease for someone, it's mental health for someone else, it's diabetes and cardiovascular disease for someone else, stroke for someone else. But it's the same set of inputs on a slightly different organism. We're all different, and the way that we're able to deal with that load of life coming at us is a complicated thing. And even at its simplest form, if you're trying to train for an event or something, balancing training and resting enough to get fit enough without getting too stuffed and getting injured and sick is complicated, because there's a lot going on. And then you try and translate that beyond just a getting ready for an event and living a whole proper great life. There's a fair bit to know, and it was never complicated for humans at one point in our history, because the way we live matched the genome. We've managed to create such an extraordinary mismatch that you actually have to know a fair bit to worm your way out of the mismatch that is modern society. You're going to have to know about exercise and a bit about exercise science and training if you want to have a good life. It's as simple as that. You're going to have to know quite a bit about diet, especially nutrients, protein, fats, carbohydrates, how they affect you and your body. The micronutrients that you might be missing, you need to know about those. You're going to need to know about how the reward system works, because it's constantly being hijacked by your phone and Netflix and alcohol and junk food and vaping and porn, and I've missed out quite a few, but they're there. And you're probably going to have a layer where you do some philosophy and think about the meaning of life, because if you don't do that, good luck as well. So yeah, that's the way I've been thinking.
Yeah, and you mentioned obviously that there are layers to this, and like a lot of the things that you've just mentioned are things that people might be familiar with or think about. Think, oh yeah, I know diet's important, or I know activity's important, etc. So Grant, chat to me and chat to us about how your book, which is sort of like a workbook almost, what did you call it? An almanac? I can't.
Yeah, I like the word almanac. It's old-fashioned enough to appeal to me.
Yes, I like it. It reminds me of the 80s, actually. I used to get Archie comics, and I think they did a yearly almanac as well.
Yeah.
So can you sort of talk us through it, actually?
So we've mentioned that mismatch. That's an obvious thing, but I've talked about the 7 truths.
Yeah.
And so I sort of put them in some sort of order, but then no particular order. So truth 1 is move or rust. And I think you can guess what that one's about. It's about the absolute critical aspect of the stress of being active, because it really introduces the idea of hormesis and adaptation, but also that you can overdo it. But if you think you're going to have a good life without being, pretty highly active, not really sure that's possible. You'll be living suboptimally. The trouble with exercise is that in today's world, it requires quite some thinking about how you do it, what tribe you're going to join, what your longevity in that is, how you derive some enjoyment from it, even with the hard bits. So that's that.
Can I actually, if I just, I have some thoughts around that, and you've mentioned it earlier about, we talked about the watered down sort of public health recommendation, but I got a real insight into the idea, into just how much of an echo chamber I must live in when I had a Facebook message with like a cousin of mine, and she wants to lose weight. And I'm like, oh, cool. Like, are you counting macros? And she said, no, what's a macro? And I'm like, of course. Like, normal people don't know stuff like this. Like, this is just 98% of the population would, we assume a certain level of knowledge. Like, we assume that the population knows that exercise is important, and and part of them does. But I guess to your point, they don't really truly understand the extent to how important, I guess, which is...
Yeah, and this book is written for exactly that person. So this is why it's taken 2.5 years of editing it to the 15th draft, which frankly was very painful for me and as the writer. But in the end, 100% worth it, because that's the group that I want to be speaking to. But with some, I guess, authority, which shouldn't be a problem, but also with a language that's understand, appealing, and also has their objections. We were talking about this earlier. So in this book, there's these right justified, italicized, random comments. And you're asking about those. And so this is actually my son, Sam, who's the anti-character, because when he's editing, he's going, you're kidding, Dad, no one's going to believe this. Or no one's going to do that. And so that's come through in the flavour of it. So I'm really proud of that. It's really cool.
It's so cool.
Yeah.
And so so as we go through the truths, and we will, but essentially it's written for the person whose first question will be, or that overwhelm that people experience, or the idea that they either, you have to almost get them at the stage where they want to change, but they're not sure how to change and what to do and why. That's essentially it.
Yeah, and it's such an easy and good read. It's in an all-man extension, pick up, put it down, have a bit of fun. It's quite funny in places. Definitely take the piss out of ourselves and others. And the anti-character is very good at doing that. But in the end, we also don't try away from the science and the truth and putting that in a way that people can understand. I think that's critical and different message that what basically gets me up in the morning, Mikki, is that we spend $30 billion a year, our biggest health spending in New Zealand, same as every other country, is health. And virtually none of that gets spent on anything to do with being healthy. It's on pharmaceuticals and procedures that are somehow going to make you healthy. It's so far out of the arena of being sensible stuff. They've gone completely off the reservation. It's a sickness system, and we're not discussing health at all, let alone when we do discuss health, we're not discussing the actual science and practice of where it's actually at.
Yeah, 100%. Truth too, Grant, the dopamine economy.
Yeah, so I put that there. I think I've sort of thought about this thing that we're calling it the devil's seesaw, which is, you have something that raises dopamine, raises anticipation, encourages motivation in the future to seek it again. That feels good. So you're on the up of the seesaw. You keep taking it though, or you take it in amounts that are somehow above whole food, water, being with your family and having sex. That's what sort of raises it at normal levels. Everything else pushes it out of that. So vaping, tobacco, alcohol, porn, social media, all junk food, drugs off the street, gambling, Netflix, all of these things push it up super normally and they add. And so the system, of course, recalibrates downwards. So now you've got more and more of the same stimulus to get the same response. So that's tolerance. But the seesaw is that when you take that away, you don't go back to baseline now, you go back way below baseline. So this is the devil's seesaw, it swings the other way. And that's withdrawal, or the opposite of pleasure is pain. And I think it's the greatest irony in modern life that all of these things promise pleasure, and it's a cruel trick that what they actually deliver is pain. And I tell you one thing that I've been thinking so much about, I really worry about it a lot, is we measured psychological distress in, say, 16 to 24-year-olds. I know we talked about this before. In 2005 in New Zealand, it was 5%. Girls running at 7.5, boys girls running at 6, boys running at 4%. That's typically the sort of difference. And that was travelling along about like that until 2012. And then it started peaking sharply upwards. It's continued on that trajectory. And we last measured it, psychological distress. It's not mentally ill, but it's not coping with day-to-day living. And the 16 to 24-year-olds was at 25%, with the girls running at 33%. It's on a topic. And then they get diagnosed with anxiety or depression. But I don't think they are that. I think actually what people are in psychological pain because of reward system dysfunction. I was initially trying to call it reward derangement syndrome, and that was too close to Trump derangement syndrome, so I've sort of gone away from that. And but there's a reward dysfunction syndrome that's probably the most pervasive problem in modern public health, especially for young people. And we haven't even discussed it. It's not a topic in society. If you're going to be drawn in to the scroll, to the junk food, to the gaming, and so on, there's no other way that this ends but in pain. And so again, that's part of, you can choose your heart, you can choose to do these things, but that's hard as well.
Yeah. Well, Grant, and I know that in the book you give practical strategies to help people, realize sort of where they might be at in the scale of, I don't know, good versus, how addicted or what their comfort is, for want of a better word. But how, if you step back, this is just modern society. So where to from here? I guess. I'm curious. I'm really genuinely curious as to how you see society changing, or in fact, I guess this is what this is. society's not going to change, so we actually have to change
Yeah,
ourselves.
I agree. It will get worse. I'm surprised in many ways, sort of professionally speaking, as an ex-psychologist, that the mental health of our young people is not worse than it is. The fact that only a quarter of them are struggling in the face, and three-quarters are actually okay, in the face of the world we've set up for them is an astonishing thing. It's going to get harder with AI. I think the AI is a different story, actually. And actually, do you mind if I tell the AI story just quickly?
Please do.
So, we're pitting this metabolic framework, and then I was just talking more about the mismatch for this another one, this metabolic one, which is way more science heavy, for health professionals. I was, talking about the mismatch and different points of human history. We've had, the agricultural revolution, while we had more babies and they could be weaned off the breast quicker because we had soft food available, but we shrunk in size, our brain shrunk, our life expectancy halved. There's pros and cons, right? Industrial revolution, the information age, but these are all things that we know about. We gained this, but we lost that. And the question is, what do we, with AI, we gain the ability to have intelligent thought and an assistant that's unbelievable. What do we lose? And I was back and forth with Claude about this. And Claude said, well, I'm an AI. I've got some insights, if you don't mind. How would you feel about me co-authoring this chapter with you? It's like, oh, shit. It's been quite the sentence. I was like, yeah, go ahead. So I wrote this little essay that's included in the book by Claude, and it's quite dark. And actually got Kayla and I written it out on social media, and it basically says, look, I can do all the thinking for you. It's what I do. But, it's basically like staying at a hotel without ever staying an invoice. It's going to end badly, and you'll forget to think. And I'm not that worried about that, except for I'll have no one to talk to. So, again, I think AI is such an exciting, interesting thing. I mean, I'm just pleased to be alive at this time of the world and the history of the planet. But I don't know what's going to happen. And what I fear, of course, is that the more you take away friction from living, the worse it ends for humans. And that's sort of continuing with engineering exercise and activity out of our day, making food. It's a lot easier getting food at the supermarket than it is hunting it.
Yeah.
Frankly. And, it's a lot easier getting from Takapuna to Hobsonville in the car than it is walking on a horse. So I think AI, again, takes away, the sort of final frontier of friction, which is cognitive. And all of a sudden, movies like WALL-E, where humans became stupid and forgot how to restart their spaceship, and that was the end of humanity, start to look real.
That's a scary thought. And Grant, I read something, I remember this a couple of years ago, actually, of how kids are so involved in video games. And, and this maybe even 5 years ago, I read this article about how, and to your point about that, getting that dopamine hit from what's going on in the video games, and then for parents to pull their kids away, and they have the temper tantrum, and they've got behavioral issues because they no longer can sort of watch their video game because they've got to talk to the family or whatever. And the reality is they're so bored in real life because their brain is so switched on by the video games that real life is so incredibly boring and intolerable that it's hard for them to exist.
Oh yeah, we had this conversation when we were over in Brisbane, right? Because we had boys of a similar age that we've experienced the same things for.
Yes.
Danny, my son's one's way more public now because he's the opening story in the chapter of that book, which describes the situation a couple of years ago when he was just gaming. It got away on us, third child, you just sort of lose focus, and all of a sudden he's gaming all the time, and he's becoming increasingly irritable, antisocial, swearing, and banging the desk when that doesn't go well, and then, swearing and stuff, and then, lost interest in activity and sports, lost interest in eating anything except for junk food. And we decided to just take the games away. And it was awful to start with. We were assholes, then we were effing assholes, and then this kid, normal, happy kid, just I'm going to cry if I go. He emerged again, and he was just locked up there by this bloody video game, and we're parents that should know better, and it still happened to us.
And what do you reckon, Grant? Like, is it the parents' fault? And I guess, and you'll never say yes to that. And I understand why. And I just think about it from a parent perspective. Like, it is so hard in that, you've got so much on your plate with regards to work, to running a household, to trying to run a family, to keeping the peace, extracurricular activities, the cost of living crisis. I understand why parents are like, man, just give them the iPad and,
Well, we've all done it, let's face it.
Yeah.
Yeah. On the other hand, so I've been thinking about this a lot in health and public health, the idea of agency and why that's not discussed. Like, even if the world's against you, that's okay. We can understand that and we can talk about that. But just to say that and not do anything is bullshit. We should, no matter what is going on in people's lives, still have a message of hope. And that message of hope is about agency. You can do something about this. Mental health is the classic one, right? So, unless it's something I know about, it's like, it's not your fault you're where you are, but it is your responsibility to help get yourself back. Again, it's like you can choose your heart. You can say it's not their fault and let them sit there and everyone can be a victim. And that might all be true, but it doesn't give you any. At the end of the day, the only real way forward is with agency. So I'm really annoyed at the moment with the public health social gradient people. Like, there's an uneven social gradient. Life's not fair. That sucks. It would be way better if it was fairer and there was less inequality. These guys are paralysed by inequality. They never get started right. So in today's public health action terms, no one would start tobacco cessation. We'd rather have everyone smoke than, of course, when you start doing public health promotion, the richer, whiter people stop smoking first or do anything first because they've got more resources. And we're paralysed by that. We're completely paralysed about giving people agency, so we don't do anything, and it's pathetic.
Yeah, that's good thoughts, Grant.
Anyway, I should stop that.
No, I like it. And you do actually say in the dopamine economy, I saw that you talk about a dopamine fast. So the thing is, you do give some, like, I know you don't have all of the answers, or maybe you do, but you.
I've tried to give all the things that I think can work.
Yeah. So is it all right? And if you can just talk about that, like, where would they even start with something like this? I mean, it's oh my God, it's a huge topic, isn't it? And it's a huge thing to do. But how do you, if you recognize actually, like, I can see this in my children or even see it in myself, like, what is the thing to do? I mean, you mentioned you just took the video games away from Danny.
Yeah, so you've got that option if it's a kid, but for all of us as adults, what we're actually, our main problem is this thing, the mobile. And I would say to people, have you got sort of this nomophobia type disorder? Like, if you don't know where your phone is, are you anxious? Could you go to work for a day and just leave it and be okay with that? And could you not use it for the weekend? Could you go a grayscale, or could you take the social apps off? Could you do a Jackson, my middle son, who's 24, him and his mates just did a 3-day no phones weekend.
Oh, nice.
And I think that's where I would be starting with that. I think it's also important to cut the junk food out at the same time. If you're having alcohol, cut that out as well. I think, taking all dopamine raising activities out at the same time is what will reset the system. People don't want to say that. Oh, that's hard. People won't do that. Well, the other option's hard as well. So you got two hard options. I'm choosing the one that makes you better.
Do you know, I really rally against when I hear that from other health professionals, like, oh, no, you can't do a we're going to get to diet in a minute, no, ketogenic diet's too hard, so we're just going to give this medication instead, regardless of the fact that this is a very therapeutic approach, so health professionals sell they dismiss an idea and they say it's hard before anyone has the opportunity to try it and see if it's hard or not. Like, this is the same for so many areas in public health.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
Maybe we should talk about the diet stuff because that's a classic one for it.
Well, I would love to chat about it. And also, I'd like people to know sort of where you're at the diet side of things. Because obviously, you were known as the keto guy, really. I mean, even if it was not strictly true, anyone thought about the way that you ate, it was what the fat, it was keto, etc.
I've called food the Holy Grail. Only because when I started looking at what the Holy Grail actually was, like it's the sort of religious overtone here for this, a bit weird, but the Holy Grails are sort of the cup that Christ last drank out of at the Last Supper, and then when they crucified him, they drained some of his blood into the cup as well. It's not a thing; it's an Arthurian, think King Arthur and Knights of the Round Table, that sort of thing. It's an Arthurian legend. And the legend goes to seek out the Holy Grail. If you go on these quests. This is the Crusades and all that. But what they're really after is the Grail. And if you get the Holy Grail, what you're getting is something that confers longevity and health. That's what the Grail. That's why they were after it.
Right.
And I was like, well, that's odd to be seeking a fictitious cup with some dead guy's blood in it. What you should be thinking is food, healthy food.
Yeah.
That's the actual Holy Grail. So that's why I thought of that. This is to entertain myself.
No, I love it.
But the question about diet types, like I would say this about the physiology of eating, is the body defends itself against excess energy, and it does it by making some pretty quick adjustments at the cellular level. So we know about those things as insulin resistance and these sorts of things. And the features of the metabolic syndrome: central adiposity, high triglycerides, low HDL, elevated blood pressure, and high triglycerides, high blood sugar. Those are they're not pathological. They're just features of the body trying to get energy away from the cells because it's got nowhere to put it there and putting it elsewhere. So one reason or another, there's more energy than you can use up coming in. It's going to adapt by putting it in other places, and it'll also have some hormonal responses. So insulin goes up, you become resistant to insulin. You become resistant to leptin, which is the one that says you're full. So you get a bit of a temporary, and if it wasn't the modern world, it was just happening in the days of old, a temporary disruption to the system. And you're still a bit more fat, so that's probably got to do with seasonal fruits or something like that. The trouble is that that's chronically disrupted, right? So we've got lots of energy coming in. It's from sources that are mixed in odd ways, fats and carbs and together, and highly processed carbs that never existed in this sort of thing. So the system is stuck in one mode, this sort of storage, get rid of the energy mode. And we know that, I think, we sort of call it a sort of orchestra of cycles that we want to be storing, we want to be repairing. So the movement between anabolic, inflammation, carbs, insulin being up, that it's good to have that system peaking, but you want it to go away again and be in a catabolic state. So you're actually producing ketones. So I still think ketones are a critical molecule, not because of the way they fuel, but because they signal for your body to start producing its own antioxidants. They signal fat burning. They signal repair, autophagy, mitophagy, mitochondrial biogenesis. All this gets signaled. And so the question isn't should I be in a ketogenic diet or not. The question is, for me, Can you access your anabolic system when you need it? Protein's very good for being anabolic as well. Can you access your catabolic system when you need it? And we should cycle between those two systems daily, weekly, monthly. There'll be periods where there's no food at all, fast because of food unavailability. So that's what I think is the human condition. A metabolically healthy human can probably have any range of macronutrients from whole food, and they go to sleep at night and they wake up in the morning and they're in a mild state of nutritional ketosis, and they eat again. And I would, the way I think about it, I feel that if you went to the down to the river, for some in the Paleolithic era, everyone would have first thing in the morning, everyone's in ketosis. You go down to the Westfield food hall, no one's in ketosis ever. And so that's how I feel about ketones and ketosis is not that you should be on a ketogenic diet, but you should somehow better get that cycling. And this is exercise, endurance exercise is an alternative pathway.
Yeah.
And we've talked about this. You can outrun a bad diet.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah. Actually.
And I think one of the reasons you can do sufficient endurance exercise will push that cellulite, and it'll push it well. Even with heaps of carbs, you'll still get it. This is the nuance we're not discussing. It's ludicrous to be pitting this diet against that diet. It's like, how do you respond to the food you eat is the question.
Grant, you work a lot with GPs in the low carb space. Did they have a good understanding of the concepts in your book, actually? Like they're looking at it from a whole. I didn't think so, if I'm honest. Is it because they don't have the time to be able to learn about it, or I don't know? What are your thoughts?
Well, I think a lot about GPs because it's like literally the smartest people in society get pushed into that out of school. Like, let's face it, we were never smart enough to even be considered that as a career. Good
call. Yes, this is true.
Somehow, and I've seen this over and over again purely because I know so many doctors, that these guys remain pretty smart, but the workload and the type of work and the system that they're working in that is broken overwhelms them. And by the time you're 50, all you've got left is the occasional cycling trip to France in the summer to watch a Tour de France, and a trip to Fiji in November. Hopefully, put a conference on it, and that's your lot. And so we've put. I'm not physically capable. I know this now. I'm not physically capable of going to work and seeing someone every 10 or 15 minutes for the whole day, each with a chronic condition or more, and then going home at night and doing the paperwork. I'm not. I literally couldn't do it. I'm not actually capable. So the fact that these people do that is an amazing thing.
Yeah.
You can't expect them to be on top of all the science and do that.
And I think this is the thing, right? Like I see a lot of arguments for doctors needing to, increase their nutrition knowledge in the curriculum. And I'm like, and once I believed that actually, and now I'm much more like, it's actually not their job. Like I don't I don't think we should be relying on doctors for that. And it's just nutrition, but all of this stuff is not necessary unless we change the entire medical system and change what a GP does.
Well, we're probably not going to do that, but that's why we're working with health coaches.
Yeah,
that's an alternative pathway, at least. It's something.
I 100% agree. Yeah. I think it's interesting on the diet stuff, Grant. I was in the podcast I was listening to today. They were talking about how they was sports and exercise professionals, but they weren't aware that in the 80s, the whole tobacco industry bought General Mills and Nestle and stuff like that, and use the playbook from tobacco on food. And so they used to be of the opinion that it was everything in moderation. And they were like, I'm just beginning to understand now how the way that food is engineered makes it so challenging for people to actually do this. And I think this is part of the problem with food, is that you get people who are in a position like mine, have very good big platforms, and they are saying, everything in moderation. Like it's almost like the optimizers have gone so far that the pushback is, no, you can eat whatever you like. You just have to, it's all just about the calories and essentially ignoring the fact that calorie control is very difficult because of the features of the food that we rely on, I guess.
Yeah, and we're just in such a mess with this, and it goes back before that acquisition was still the Sugar Research Advisory Council. That there was one existed here in New Zealand. There was funded by Nestle, and undermining science, and then that goes back to the 60s where that started in the States, and it's well documented. So,
well, do you know, I co-authored a paper actually under the Sugar Advisory Council in my time at Otago. So the research was looking at, do sugary beverages I can't believe this now. Do sugary beverages contribute to overweight and obesity? Apparently not, actually.
And you were on that.
I did the research.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. That's why I don't mind putting the quotes of these clowns in the front of my book, because that's what they were actually tussled up with at the time. It's a disgrace. And you're in that. Yeah. You remember that.
Yes.
Oh, no.
I think it's on my publication list, because I have very few publications. I have to I have to list them to make it look bigger.
So you were part of the problem.
I 100% public enemy number one. Let's tell you what. So Grant, truth number 4: face the elements. Now we're talking about cold exposure, hot heat here. Like, what is that about?
I mean, just in the sort of hormetic principle.
Yeah.
You're gonna adapt to. I think a sort of slightly roundabout argument here that's going to slightly underdo my whole argument. It's like, if you want to choose one of the easier hard things.
Okay, yeah.
For me, it's all of that.
Yeah.
Because you get quite specific and actually quite profound adaptations through hot and cold exposure. And we know this to be true. The heat shock proteins, the dimorphin, which you introduced me to, such a cool thing.
I know.
Yeah, and all of the plasma volume changes and the sort of hormetic response to the difficulty of being under heat stress or cold stress are profoundly good for you.
Yeah.
And another way to dose, adapting in a direction that makes you more robust as a specimen. And one of the great things to do with a youngster is to start to get them into that. We ended up spending quite a bit of money on a sauna and a freezer.
Is it a dry heat sauna or an infrared?
It's it's got like a heating element and you put water on it.
Dry. Okay, it's a dry. Yeah, cool. Finish. Yeah, nice one.
Yeah. So just absolutely cook yourself. When I was writing about this book, actually, Mikki, you introduced me to I didn't actually realise there was such a thing called dimorphin.
Oh, yeah.
Which is sort of that, when you get to the end of a sauna and you're like, oh, shit, I just can't take this anymore. And you actually start to freak out a bit.
Yeah. That happened to me on Thursday.
That's the dimorphin. Were you thinking about dimorphin at that point?
I absolutely was, because, and the reason why, just to steal your what you were talking about and just bring back to me, I've just gotten back into the sauna this week because I go to a very expensive gym, Grant, and it's got an outdoor pool, which is why I go, and a sauna. But I haven't been very good at accessing either of them over the last few months. I'm like, I've got to start justifying this. I got into the sauna and immediately, I don't know if your book actually covers this, but I was immediately transported back to July last year when we were training for the Grand to Grand, and we would do a big training session and go into the sauna, and I got that real feeling of satisfaction and feeling of achievement, and it took me back because that was such a wonderful experience doing that.
Oh, that's cool.
And then I'm like, right, I'll stay in for 20 minutes, and at about 17 minutes, I'm like, oh, okay, this is getting really hard, and I really had to double down, and I was thinking about dimorphins then, and that discomfort you feel, which I don't think you feel with an infrared to the same extent. So I wonder.
I don't think infrareds are hormetic in the same way. I think there's a whole infrared light and the way that affects mitochondria, but it's a different thing.
Yeah. I thought so. Yeah, and I think it's the Finnish type sauna is the best thing, and I absolutely thought of the dynorphins, which are the opposite of endorphins, but then something normal in life is so much more pleasurable because you've had that release. So you actually enjoy life a bit more. This must come up in your dopamine chapter as well, right?
Well, that's the astonishing thing. So you put the pain first,
yeah,
and reset the dopaminergic system through cold or sauna, and then in many ways you'd like either think, "Christ, I'm not so cold now," or "Thank God, I'm not so hot."
Yes.
And so you're much more able to experience pleasure in the normal way. So that's the opposite of the irony of the devil's seesaw, which of course is a promised pleasure gave you pain.
Yeah.
This thing promises pain and gives you pleasure. What an irony!
I know.
That's why I'm going to choose you hard. But all the easy stuff causes pain in the long run.
I know.
All the hard stuff causes pleasure in the long run. So, that's absolutely choose your heart, for God's sake. That's a brutal reality of physiology.
And that's what every time so when I was in the sauna, but when I was out this weekend, when I was feeling tired, and yesterday when my mind was particularly not in it, but I just, that's exactly what goes through my mind. This is and I often think, I'm like at the start of the Grand to Grand on the long day, I've just completely, co-opted this conversation about my race, but the long day was 87 kilometers and we had to start at 10 o'clock in the morning. We had to start 2 hours after everyone else, and I just thought to myself, well, it's hard regardless, and I just have to get out and do it. And I just completely surrendered to the idea that I was going to be out in the heat. I would be up way past my bedtime till I'll be out for 16 and a half hours. I'm like, it's not easy, but I can do this. It was very satisfying.
What we should talk about now? It's the opportune time while we're talking about your event, because I know you've got another one coming up, and I did one over the summer as well.
Yes.
Not as hard as yours, by the way, but
still,
so we co-opted the idea that we got from Japanese Shinto religion called the Misogi.
Yes, tell me about this.
So they had this idea that if you're into Shinto, then maybe you choose one hard thing every year, and that hard thing needs to be way outside of your comfort zone, and you would experience growth from doing that. So I've sort of introduced this idea of the Misogi challenge, and we set this up. And actually, if you go onto the profgrantskofield.com website, you'll see that click on the shoot you can declare your own Misogi, just for a laugh. We put our ones up there, and it takes you through a 3-step process. And so it says, does it scare the shit out of you? If you go yes, it takes you to the next level. If you go no, you're kicked out.
Yeah.
So does it scare the shit out of you? Yes. Is it specific? In other words, can you tell if you did it or not? Yes. You carry on to the next thing. And then the last one, does it break the laws of physics? It has to obviously not break the laws of physics.
Oh, I know. I'm like, is that a trick question? I don't think what I've got will.
So you need a yes, and no. And then you're good to go with your Misogi challenge. You pace up what you're doing, put people supporting you there and away you go. So
cool.
I think one thing I've always admired about you, Mikki, is you've always been big on the Misogi. Not that you knew it was that, but you have been, right? That's been a feature of your life.
It is, but equally though, as I'm sitting here, I was thinking about how I was reflecting yesterday on my run, thinking, I feel a bit rubbish. Maybe I'll just do the 60K at Naseby. But as I'm sitting here today with you, I'm like, shit, no, I have to do that 100K because that freaks me out. So yes, I am. Yes, I am.
Does it scare the shit out of you?
Yes.
Is it specific? Do you know if you've done it or not?
100%, yeah.
Does it break the laws of physics?
Yeah, I had to double check that. No, it in fact did not. Because I'm not that smart. As you said, we're not that smart. So I had to double check how that worked. But I love that, Grant. Are you actually curious? Will you take groups through a Misogi challenge? This is a huge group thing.
Yeah, we're just trying to figure out how we do that because we're quite keen on just getting a bit of a sort of choose your heart type thing going in society. So we might do that. We're actually going to do July the 1st. The first Monday in July, we generally do 2, 3, or 5 day fast.
Oh, amazing.
And people, as a group, so I'll look out for me on social. I'll get people going there. So that's a Masogi of some sort.
Yeah, that sounds great. And I've done in the past with some of my groups, even like a 30-day step challenge, a 30-day cold shower challenge, those kind of things are achievable for the majority of people. Look, Grant, I'm conscious of time, but can I just can we just actually get to maybe the last truth? I've skipped a couple, but the know your me.
Yeah, that's the bit I was hoping you get to. That's my favourite.
I'm really interested in this too.
So what I was thinking when I got to the end of writing this, I was like, if there's anything fundamentally true about the human condition, sort of philosophically, like choosing your heart's a philosophical bent, then we shouldn't have been the first people to think of this. In fact, it should be true across multiple domains where people have written about life and well-being. And so you're going to laugh at what I did there. I went and dug up, like, literally all the Buddhist stuff, the Chinese Tao, Beijing, the Stoics, and so on and so on and so on. Even the Bible, for what the hell that's worth.
Even the Bible. I cannot believe you just said that. Okay, yeah.
And then modern self-help.
Yeah,
and I reckon I distilled it down to a few things that I think they've all got in common. And so I'll tell you what those are. Life is hard. Your life's not all about you. You're not in control, and you're going to die. And that sounds a bit pessimistic, but putting that layer on things actually puts a fairly finite time on your existence and makes you work towards a few things. It brings it into brutal reality. Amongst all of that, the book I had discovered that I should have read when I was a younger man is Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. Have you ever read that?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is a profound, astonishing book. Frankl wrote it in 4 days after, being captured as a Jew in concentration camps across Germany, including Auschwitz. Watching everyone he knew die. And he was a psychiatrist, and his observation was a pretty powerful but simple one. What discriminated the people who lived versus those who were able to survive is that they had a higher meaning in their life. It wasn't necessarily God or religion, but they were doing. They had a meaning, and he said that we can survive almost anything, provided we have a reason to do so. And I think that's the important thing, and no one can find that for you. So you sort of combine that sort of essential truth that, life's hard, it's not all about you, you're not in control and you're going to die, with Frankl's thing. And I think you're getting somewhere into understanding, what you want your life to look like. One of the most interesting things, Mikki, to me in society is that people buy lotto tickets.
Yeah.
Because people laugh at me when I say this, right? The data are clear. You are not happier if you win the lotto. In fact, it's highly likely you'll be less happy unless you give the money away. People are like, okay, fine, I'll go in the study and I'll prove the exception to the rule here. But I think that's likely to be true. This idea of I'll retire here and do nothing into some basic hedonism violates every principle of living a good life. The actual struggle is what brings people alive. And if you can't, in today's world, you're actually going to have to go and find some of those for yourself. And it's better to find them on your own terms than be handed them.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I feel like as athletes, people who discovered sport, training, etc., I feel like this concept is an easier one to grasp because we understand the reward that comes from hard work. Whereas for and I think it's equally though, it's not necessarily that, we understand this, choose hard, so this isn't a concept because it doesn't mean you're not struggling in another area or whatever, but yeah.
Any way you put life around is challenging. Do it on your terms, for God's sake. Otherwise, it'll be a bit more sucky.
Yeah, well, and if we put numbers to that, isn't it like I heard at a conference, this was maybe last year, Paul Taylor, I think, was talking about physical activity, quality life, right? And in the UK, women's life expectancy is around 80 years, but their health expectancy, health span is about 60. So they live 20 years in poor health. 20 years, that's a whole human. Like, that is, you literally can grow a human to almost adult in 20 years. That is how long you spend in disability. Men, I think the gap is about 16 years because men seem to they die a little bit earlier. But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, but we die earlier, but with a better health span. It's interesting.
Yeah, that is interesting. Yeah, actually, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if there was a world that we lived in which completely matched the way we're supposed to live and the resources were exactly available as they're supposed to be, that'd be hard as well, but unless we wouldn't have to try, it would be forced on us, and would be there. And, the closest I've seen to that was the work that we did when we were doing those remote Pacific atolls and for the World Health Organization. They were pretty healthy, but all they wanted to do was be like us.
Wow, interesting. Hey, Grant, thank you. So, where can people find this book?
Just go to profgrantskofield.com and you'll see everything you need to know there. It's going to be on Amazon. You can pick it up as an ebook. You can write the actual one. I advise that. Being an almanac, you sort of want to better.
Yeah.
Hold it.
I agree. Yeah, I completely agree. And do people call you the people's professor? I feel like they should at this point if they don't already. Because you are one of the smartest people I know, but you're so very good at translating that science into information that we understand. And I'm really looking forward to actually having a proper read of this, Grant. And well done. 2 years in the making.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah, thank you very much. Thanks for having me on the podcast.
Yeah, as always.
I feel good about it being the very first ever podcast guest.
You should actually. Yeah. You kicked this whole thing off. Nice one, Grant.
Awesome.
Okay, see ya. Alrighty, hopefully you enjoyed that. I always love catching up with Grant, and really this is just a perfect excuse to have a bit of a chinwag and do some of that necessary catch up. So you guys have the best week. You can let me know what you think. If you've got Grant's book and you want to share some insights with me, absolutely, I'm here for it. Over on Threads, X and Instagram at Mikki Williden, Facebook at Mikki Williden Nutrition, or head to my website, mikkiwilliden.com. Scroll right down to the bottom and pop your name in that little box that gets you access to my weekly emails where I share research, insights, opinions, and way more. All right, guys, you have the best week. See you later.